We are live from sea to shining sea. Unbelievable. If this isn't fun, why the heck get up so early? Hope you got something out of that segment. We welcome you back. You're at the right place at the right time.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time.
The Brando Show continues. So happy right now to be joined by Danny Wuerffel, Heisman Trophy winner, Florida great. Had the honor of calling so many of his games in that 96 season when they went on to win the national championship with the fun and gun of Steve Spurrier. And a few years later, after all that he did for the game of college football and then in the National Football League, I used to go down to New Orleans and see him and the work that he was doing with his ministry and mission post Katrina. And it was incredible, all that was going on in the lower Ninth Ward areas. And the Desire Street Ministries are something that's near and dear to Danny's heart, and it's been recognized the world over. It really has. He's taken it national in so many respects now and is based in Atlanta. But it was even before that, long before what had happened in New Orleans happened. The Wuerffel Trophy and their people came to me and several others, I think, in the business to say, hey, we'd like for you to be on our board, and we'd like to have you help us determine who the recipient of the Wuerffel Trophy should be. And it truly is I think it's the most beautiful trophy that you can find in sports, and it has now become right up there with the most coveted of postseason awards for any college football player. Danny joins us now from Atlanta, and I'm also happy to say, Danny, that I'm going to be chatting shortly with your executive director of the Wuerffel Trophy, Tom Brassell, who's here. But let's start with you for just a second. How have you been? Tell me about the Desire Street Ministries and what's going on.
Well, man, that's like the greatest little introduction I've ever had. Thanks, Tim. I tell you, appreciate that. Things are going really well. You know, I've been really blessed to be a part of Desire Street since 1997, from volunteering to serving in different ways to joining the team, and after Katrina, becoming the director. And you know, our vision has always been to see inner city neighborhoods transformed. I mean, we really believe that there can be a total transformation of a neighborhood, and we've seen it, and we want to spend. And you know, we believe that people that live in the neighborhood are the best able to change their own neighborhood. So what we do is we partner with people who I would call heroes that live in inner cities that have vision and passion, and we partner with them for 3 to 5 years to help them be effective and successful and what they do. And of course, we're still very active in New Orleans and rebuilding and relaunching there. But it's been quite a ride, that's for sure.
No doubt about it. Danny, you were recently, and listen, back in May we learned you're going into the College Football Hall of Fame. And by the way, when you have these chances and opportunities present themselves, it also helps you get the word out in so many ways. So the blessing here is not just you're being honored the way you're going to be by the National Football Foundation, but the opportunity to once again expose to the world what the Danny Wuerffel world is all about, what Desire Street's all about, what you're all about.
Well, you know, I do think I love the word stewardship, and usually when you hear that word, you think of a lot of people think of money. You know, be a good steward of your money. But I think we all have blessings and assets and capital that's other than money, and how can we use those things? How can we steward those in a way that aren't just for ourselves but for others? And so that's what college football in many ways has afforded me to do as my life's gone on, and it's part of why I really love the idea behind the Wuerffel Trophy. Is it's stewarding the platform of college football to honor and highlight people that are doing great things for others.
And there are so many guys. I'm going to tell you, it's hard to be a voter for the Wuerffel Trophy because we all take a look at different conferences, all of us that are on the board, and gee whiz, there's some great kids out there. And that's the thing. So oftentimes I'm telling people all the time, Danny, that there are so many more good stories than bad. If you spend a lot of time with the youth of America, you figure this out. It's such a shame the world at large doesn't get that because of the images and impressions of the social media culture we have today. We hear all of the negative things, not nearly as many positive. But then you look at the resumes of these nominees for your award, and it's just incredible. Hard to come up with a winner every year. It is.
It really is, and just I'm sure you'll talk more about this, but the Wuerffel Trophy selects the best college football player that plays football, excels in the classroom, and does community service.
That's right.
So we get these resumes, like you mentioned. And, I'm not just trying to pretend to sound humble, but, I mean, many of these years, I don't think if I were back in college, I'd make the top 10.
Yeah.
It's amazing what people do. I ask myself, is there enough time in the day to do these things? And you're right. My parents, me, and my wife are also part of what's a really robust and amazing selection committee, including yourself and others. And there's been several times where between the four of us, we have three or four different top choices, just because there's so many amazing folks. And it is a shame that what gets the press is usually the negative things. And so I appreciate all you've done, and since I've known you, to use your platform to highlight positive things too, and that means a lot. So thank you too.
You bet, Danny. When you see the stories surrounding Johnny Manziel and Wright Thompson, the outstanding journalist, video and sports journalist from ESPN, did a piece that was recently published, and it explains a great deal. But I think a lot of people would want to know what your interpretation of someone who maybe a troubled background or perhaps was growing up in an environment that didn't necessarily prepare him to the fullest extent for what is going to happen. What were your innermost thoughts when you saw that?
Well, one, I want to be clear. I'm probably not as up to speed on all the details as others. I haven't caught a lot of the news recently, so I don't want to be speaking like an expert at all.
Sure.
But, I will say one thing that I know is we all of us have parts that are undeveloped, broken, affected, and typically, you can bear so much pressure, and then depending on how much you struggle or how much undeveloped you are, that pressure of life or whatever it is can cause you to snap or break or just really be overwhelmed. And I think, the amount of pressure for a young man, that age, I even think of the difference, Tim, between me as a freshman and me as a senior, just in my own mind and psyche, and it was a big difference.
Sure it was.
And so I think, it's just, I understand it. It's a shame, and it's also a shame that, like you said, everyone in the world knows every detail about it too. It's not like some things he's dealing with.
The other thing too, Danny, and while we have this moment, I just think it's important for us to discuss because as a man of faith, but also a man in the media, I find it sometimes uncomfortable, difficult to both shed light on what I believe to be personally true, but at the same time, objectively understanding that not everyone feels as I do when it's appropriate to discuss those matters. When coming up and you wore your faith on your shirt sleeve in the 90s in a very large way. Still do and always will. I get all of that. But I don't know that you got the same pushback that your friend and former Gator and, yes, Heisman Trophy winner Tim Tebow currently gets. When you see and hear the reaction to Tim that's not always positive, what goes through your mind? Because I don't know that it was the same. The cultures were different in the mid-'90s when you were playing versus now when Tim is out there. And so very popular, but at the same time polarizing. What do you take from that?
Well, I do think in many ways over the past, 15, 20 years that society at large is a little more polarized in itself and a little more divisive in many ways. So I think it's a sign of the times for one, and then secondly, as we already mentioned, there's this just a lot of social media that every little thing and everybody's opinion and everyone's thoughts about everyone else's thoughts is just huge.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's unfortunate. It's just a reflection of the world that we live in, and it's just is what it is.
We're visiting with Danny Wuerffel here on the Tim Brando Show, the Wuerffel Trophy, and Tom Brassell is also here. Tom was the guy that actually came to me. He's on the board of directors, and he's the chairman, as I mentioned earlier, the executive director of the Wuerffel Trophy. And you were at the time, Tom, talking to me and several others. Dick Enberg is also on the board. There's several others. Bobby Bowden. I could go on and on. It's an elite group. Trust me, I'm humbled every time I see the list of guys that are on the board. That I would be in that group makes me feel awfully good. But this thing, the trophy itself has become, I think, you think of the Heisman, and you say trophy, Heisman Trophy, and then the next one I hear is the Wuerffel Trophy. And that's a long way to have come in 8 years when you think about that. Yeah, there are other awards, a lot of them, but when you say trophy, more oftentimes than not, you're hearing the Heisman Trophy, and then you hear the Wuerffel Trophy. That's got to make you feel awfully good.
Well, that's humbling to hear, Tim. Like we said, when we came to you 8 years ago, we didn't have a trophy. We didn't have anything. we had an idea, and the first person we had to convince of the idea was the man on the other end of the phone.
Right.
He didn't want at first, right, Danny? You a little different about an award named after yourself when you're 29 years old, but the where it's come. Well, Danny and I had breakfast a few weeks ago, and you asked me what our mission statement was. And myself and you and John Watts, we thought about different mission statements, and you put it together in 2 words. You remember it, Danny?
I do, yeah.
Selfless excellence.
That's and by the way, there are so many examples of that with these guys that, again, I think maybe it's kind of a shame we don't have a second, third, fourth runner-up. Because there's so many great ones out there. I think today, talking with the sports information people, Danny, just being nominated does matter to these kids and to their institutions, too.
Well, that's hopefully that's going to happen more and more. And, I think the more you celebrate the good things, the more it inspires people towards that. Even, golly, with our kids, when there's all these negative this and that and this, and then someone all of a sudden does something generous. Yeah. And we just celebrate it, and then you see the other kids thinking, well, wait a minute, that could be fun. That could be good, that it's a good thing. It's something to celebrate and be inspired towards. And so that's the hope, and we do hope it gets more and more traction and see.
Give me, if you can, Danny, if you don't mind, your thoughts about where the sport of college football has gone since you played. When you think about the national championship that you guys got for Spurrier and how important it's always been in our part of the country, in the Southeast, but to see it now mushroom into really a close second to the NFL. When you were playing, college football was always big, but now it's even larger, which, again, I think enables you and your message to get out even at a higher level than it did when you were playing.
Yeah, well, you would certainly know the extent of that more than I, but it's a great sport, and I think the tie, NFL fans, you kind of. I remember I lived in Nebraska and like Dan Marino for whatever reason, so I cheer for Miami. But when you talk about an honor school that you went to, where you've got all the emotional memories and ties, just the allegiances get so strong. And it's just a great sport, and of course, the TV and all the different deals have just really done a great job of bringing that closer and closer to the fans.
All right, before I let you go, I think a lot of people do remember Katrina and the impact of that with the Desire Street Ministry and how you helped those young kids, and you had to move them over to Milton, Florida, and you got some help for a period of time there to kind of keep things going. Now you've moved on to Atlanta. I'd love for you to tell everyone what the Desire Street Ministries are up to now and how it's not just in certain parts of the country, it's everywhere. And the message that's now being sent is more global than regional.
Well, certainly you hope that the message of caring for others and serve those that need help is something that just continues to gather. Specifically, we have, we've taken the approach that, one person could mentor 10 kids, or one person could mentor 10 mentors, and each of those 10 mentors could mentor 10 kids. And so if you kind of take that metaphor, that's our mission. We are working with, coaching, guiding, supporting, developing a number of different organizations and leaders right now, primarily over the Southeast. We want to get good at what we're doing. Just because you may be good as a player doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach right out the gate.
That's right.
So we're learning and growing in our role, and we're working in probably about six or 8 different cities, several different neighborhoods, very intensely, and then broader than that on a less intensive scale. And I'm just excited. I really do think that, after, people are talking about a football player or long after any of us are around, that there really is a really significant chance that countless neighborhoods and thousands of lives will have been impacted because of what we're trying to do.
By the way, hey, Danny, Tom, I got to ask Tom about this because he's down there in Fort Walton, Florida, where Edwin Watts and company are putting together all those great irons that I use from time to time. Tom, I've got to ask you this. You're down there in the Panhandle, and you got Florida State people, Auburn people, Alabama people, LSU people. You ever notice when Danny's around that let's just say it's friendly fire as opposed to just fire among those fans?
It was funny. We were playing golf a few weeks ago, and we drove the beverage cart came up, and she didn't know who Danny was. And we brought up Florida. She goes, I hate Florida. And Danny played along. It was funny.
You notice Druba back there with us, he's going nuts. It never stops down there with Florida State and Florida, does it? It never stops. Danny, thanks again for the time. I'm always happy to chat with you and catch up, but always it's a pleasure for me to be associated in any way with the Wuerffel Trophy. And thanks for continuing to do all that you do, because whenever I'm paying it forward or trying to help someone else, either in our business or in life, I think of you, because we all need to be better people. And just going to church ain't what it's about. It's about being better to people all the time. And that's what you've always been. And hopefully that kind of message needs to get out to everyone, regardless of, what religion you practice. It's all about the way you treat people. Thank you again.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thanks for all you do. And Tom, you too, buddy. Appreciate working with you and all your work. And you guys have fun chatting.
You got it. Take care of yourself.
Thanks,
we do that every day, don't we? Have fun chatting. And we'll do that with you when we come back. 888-573-5335.